So we caught who was vandalizing our electric system. So as you know, Carolyn and I live off grid, have for 3 years. Prior to that, we lived in a truck camper, traveled the country, and I guess you could call us off grid. I don't call us off grid, although we weren't connected to the electric or water, but there was also this mindset for me that off grid means you are not relying on anybody, being self-sufficient as much as possible. Well, since you were relying on the national forest or the conservation areas or national parks, whatever it is you were relying on to park on, that's not self-sufficient. You still needed someone to take care of you. So we moved here 3 years ago and we dropped our truck camper off. I know many of you are going to already know this, just bear with me. We took our truck camper off, our homemade truck camper off the truck, and we stayed in it while we built our tiny house. Today it's raining, so I'm making a video under the porch. I do have a GoPro and I do have a water mod, a waterproof mod, but when I do that, there's no sound because the mod covers the entire camera. So I have to put a phone in my pocket and record the audio in my pocket, and then I got to edit all that together, and it's sometimes not that easy to get my lips to match up to the audio. I've done it several times, but I figured I'd just do a video on the porch here. You'll get the idea of what I'm talking about. Then we, of course, got the well house fixed. We got solar panels. I forgot to mention that. We got solar panels. Recently, I've just upgraded the solar panels a little bit, made them more efficient. Really, all I had to do was buy a second charge controller. So now I'm getting all the amps into the batteries. If you want to see what I'm talking about, just go back in my videos for the last few months. You'll see what I'm talking about. One charge controller is only putting half amount of amps into the batteries. So I've got a second charge controller. Now I've got all the amps going in there that the solar panels can produce. We can run the well pump off the solar panels now. So that is a huge benefit. Now today's, I went ahead and started the generator so I could get the water filled up. Carolyn said that she was thinking about doing laundry, so she'll use quite a bit of water, so I want to make sure that she's got enough water. I'm sure we will, but it's just, I don't know, a quirk for me. I like to keep that tank filled. And the reason I keep the tank filled is if something were to happen, generators or cloudiness or just a bunch of failures all at once, I still got 275 gallons of water that we can use at the last fill-up point. Try to keep it filled, even on cloudy days. I'm disappointed I had to run the generator today, but it is what it is. It's not a big deal. And of course, people are going to say, well, what about SHTF? There's no way you can fill your well. This isn't SHTF. I've talked about that so many times. I don't even know if it's worth addressing, but in an SHTF, I wouldn't have to worry about the freezer. So I could just run the well off solar panels and that'd be all I need. I'd have plenty of electric. But since I got to run that freezer, I got to make sure I got enough battery to get us through the night every day without fail. So that's why sometimes it's just better to run the generator. Well, you're not off grid, you got gas and propane cost. I'm relying on myself to take care of myself. That's my definition. Now, as you know, we also bought this camper for Carolyn's son so he could come here. We also bought it for visitors. That way visitors can come up and stay in it. And we were running air conditioner off the solar panels, but that was before we made the improvement. So we were running with an inefficient solar panel system. So I can't even imagine what it'd be like now if we ran the air conditioner. So last night, this is like the second time this has happened to us. Last night, about 10 o'clock, we had a massive storm come through. Wasn't a lot of rain. Now I've told you that my well has stopped leaking. Even though we get this flash flood of rain, I dug a little ditch, and now all season we haven't had one problem with the well. So today I was able to fill it without having dirty water. But we had this huge storm come through yesterday, and it was at 8:30 when they put out the notice that we were going to storm, and it ended up storming at 10:30. So I was already asleep. And it was basically a hurricane force wind is what they're reporting. We had winds of 79 miles an hour, I think is what they said. Sustained winds, so that I guess considered hurricane force winds. And we did okay, but here's the thing. A lot of people will comment in my comment section telling me how to set up my system, as though they know or they've watched other YouTubers. And I see this a lot. if I were you, and it's always if I were you, or if I was doing this, you should, like they're an expert. And then what they want me to do is pick the solar panels up off the ground, put them on a frame, and I don't know, sometimes they'll say put them on top of the shed, put them on top of the camper. You're always wanting me to put them somewhere. Well, first of all, I mean, you got to realize we're just surrounded by trees. And when I made the system more efficient, one of the things I did was move the solar panels up the hill 10 feet so I could get 2 hours more sunlight. So if it was on a frame, it would have been stuck there. I'd have had to dig up the concrete block that I poured the frame into, the pole. I would have had to move the whole thing. It's not easy. But Carolyn said, hey, move the solar panels. I said, okay. And within 2 hours, I had them moved. There is a huge advantage, and I'm going to talk about some of these advantages, to putting them on the ground. They lay on the ground, and right now they're on top of a tarp. I'm going to get a white tarp, I think, and put it underneath there. I haven't, but I haven't really had the need to yet. But they stay cooler on the ground. And I made a video where I showed you with a laser pointer thermometer thing that they were like 20 degrees cooler on the ground than if they had been up. So there's one advantage. The second advantage is I got 2 solar panels where I move them around all the time. They're on an extended piece of wire. And I move those around kind of for the sun and shading and all kinds of stuff. So in the wintertime, I'll even be able to put them on the other side. Right now, they're on the west side of this main panel, bulk of the panels, field of panels, whatever you want to call them. So they're on the west side, but in the winter, I might put them on the east side because I'll have more sunlight in the evening than I will in the morning. So I'll keep an eye on that. But I can move them. That's the key. Well, yet last night at 8:30, they put out a warning that there's going to be softball-sized hail. Well, that's huge. I mean, it's going to damage everything. And they even said it's going to damage cars, trees, roofs, and all that. So I pick my solar panels up and flip them over. And then I start stacking like 2 or 3 on top of each other. Then I take a metal panel and I put over those stacks. So I've got 12 solar panels, so let's just call it 4 stacks for the easy math. Well, the thing is let's just assume something happened to the panel and that 79-mile-an-hour wind knocked those metal sheets off. Now I put concrete blocks on them, but let's just assume that happens. My thinking is I'm only going to lose 4 panels. The top panel, because remember I stacked them up on top of each other. I would imagine that if that metal flies off, softball-sized hail comes down, hits the top one, it'd just break the top one and be all right for the second and third one on the row. So I'd lose 4 of them, but I wouldn't lose all of them. So I still can make electricity and replace the ones that I need to replace. Have to be careful running the well, I would imagine. If you put them on a pole where they're on a frame and you can't move them unless you pick the whole pole up and lay it down. I don't know how you would do it. I mean, they're 15 pounds a piece, so when you get 10 of them and you're up to 150 pounds, they get kind of heavy, plus the frame weight. If you had them on a frame and there was a hailstorm, you just lose your solar panels. Now, I think what they do is they test solar panels with a baseball, flying through one of those baseball machines, that throws the baseball. I think it gets up to 90 miles an hour or something. But solar panels will bust up pretty significantly with hailstorms. Now, I had a panel that flipped over and fell onto a rock. That's all it did. Wind picked it up, flipped it over. And I've showed you that it cracked the outer glass. So when you look at a solar panel, you have a piece of glass, and then you have the solar cells underneath the glass. Well, it's all cracked, all of it. Well, that protects those solar cells. So even though the glass is broke, the cells themselves are fine. The thing is there is still some shading. That glass is shading quite a bit. So I've lost several amps, maybe 2 amps off that solar panel. If you don't get them flipped over, and they all do that, you're going to lose, let's say 2 amps per panel. You got 10 panels, 20 amps. That is huge. I need a minimum of about 20 amps, 25 amps to get my batteries to charge on a cloudy day like this. So if you're losing that much, you may not even get your batteries to charge. So having the advantage of flipping over and putting stuff over is huge. Now, I know somebody's gonna say, well, what you could do, and you could build this, and you put that up, and yeah, you could spend a lot of money. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Everybody wants to spend money. And I'm trying to show you that you can do this on a budget. $1,200 for solar panels. $5,000 for a house, $4,200 for a piece of property. I'm trying to show you how to do it on a budget, but everybody wants to spend money. So I'm sure somebody's going to tell me how to spend a bunch of money to protect my solar panels on a frame. But then, of course, I still lose the ability to move them around. But somebody will say it. But I do think that anybody watching this video should start seriously considering getting solar panels. Now, I know 2 people for a fact in my audience that are doing this. Both of them have written me, they've showed me their systems. A third one wrote me and told me he sent pictures, but I never saw the pictures. But the problem with his email was he immediately said he was 125% better than me, smarter than me, because he used lithium-ion batteries and I used lead-acid batteries. So I just ignored his email. I mean, if you're going to just start ridiculing anything anybody is saying or doing, then I don't even feel interested in looking at it. The thing is there was another guy sent me a picture of his lithium-ion batteries, and they are nice. And I don't doubt that he's going to love them. But for my situation, mine are better. So to be 125% smarter than me, because here's what they say, lithium-ion batteries. If you buy a 100 amp battery, well, if you buy lead acid, it's actually only 50 amps. It's false advertising. So you spend $100 for 50 amps, but the advertising says it's 100 amps. What it is, you can only use half the battery on lithium. It is actually a 100 amp battery. But if you get it below 12.3 volts, you start to hurt the battery. Well, with lithium ion, some people say, you can run it down to dead and it won't hurt the battery. So if you had a 100 amp, you actually get a full 100 amps out of it. So they're saying I'm wasting money. But the thing is, they spent $250. The thing is I've seen lithium ion advertised on Amazon, different places, and it says you can only get it down to 20%. So you can't really use all of it. So if you're getting it down to 20%, that means you still are only getting 70 amps out of your battery, and you're spending a ton more money than I am on batteries. So if you look at your lead acid batteries and you say, I'm spending $100 for 50 amps, it's still cheaper than the lithium ion. I know people are going to say lithium ion is better. No matter how many times I say it, somebody's going to do it. And I think they're actually trolls by this point. They're doing it just to be a troll. I think everybody needs to start doing this. But our federal government is now secretly investigating and taking action against China hackers. They're actually hacking our infrastructure. The government knows about it. They don't want to tell us. And the reason they don't want to tell us is they want us to die in our beds. They don't want us to know anything. They're protecting us by keeping us stupid. But they are searching for hackers, Chinese hackers, and they're trying to hack our water systems, our electric systems. We're already starting to see rolling blackouts throughout the country, and it's getting more significant all the time. We are becoming a poorer country than we were at the beginning of my life. The United States was a very strong country in the 50s and the 60s. But since then, we have steadily went down in decline. We are caving to the weakest of our society. We're not trying to pull them up to better themselves. We're allowing them to drag us down. So instead of saying, you should find a weight loss program, let's get healthy together, we are now saying, oh, it's okay to be overweight. I've seen hundreds of videos where people are glorifying the idea of being overweight. I read an article not that long ago, I think it was the CDC, said that being overweight is not unhealthy. Some people just have genetics for overweight. Well, it is unhealthy. Every doctor you talk to will tell you got to lose weight. It's the first thing they tell you. You got to lose weight. It's hard on your joints. You can't do anything. It's hard to breathe. You got to get healthy. So, same thing here. We don't want our society to know that we're susceptible to being hacked and our infrastructure is vulnerable. So let's just keep it a big secret. The government will work behind our backs, and if it does go down, if our electric does go down, oh wow, what happened there? And we'll be like, oh man, this is terrible. And nobody will be ready, and we can be overtaken. And that may be the objective of our government, is for them to overtake us. But well, here last night the electric went out in the area, and the way I know it goes out is there's a gas station. Oh, it's out in the middle of nowhere, but they got that huge billboard sign. And on cloudy days, cloudy nights, that billboard reflects off the clouds. So you can see the sky is kind of lit up from that stupid billboard. Well, when the electric goes out and it's cloudy like this, like it was last night, it just goes dark. I mean, just dark, dark. So I knew it went out last night. And I didn't notice. Our freezer was fine. Everything's fine. I'm sure I'll get on Facebook later, and somebody in the community Facebook page, you know, for that community down there, will say something about the electric's out or it has been out. I would suggest that everybody at least get a backup system. I know the one fellow that sends me an email occasionally on his system is using it as a backup system. And then I told you about a family that's going to live off grid. And they just sent me more pictures. They got all their drywall up. They've still got to get the spackle up, but they got the drywall up. And it's looking beautiful. So if you click this up next box, take you to a video where I was talking about the feds busted me. So if I can inspire you to get ahead of the curve so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.